We begin today's show in Gaza, where the death toll from Israel's 15-week war has topped 25,000. There are reports Israel's blowing up entire neighborhoods of the besieged city of Khan Yunis. Al Jazeera reports Israel's targeted hospitals, ambulances, and schools in the city where thousands of civilians are sheltering. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reports the United States, Qatar, and Egypt are pushing Israel and Hamas to take part in what the paper describes as a phased diplomatic process involving the release of hostages held in Gaza and the eventual withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza. After the report was published, the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, said he rejects the proposal because it calls for the war to end. On Thursday, Netanyahu also publicly rejected calls by the Biden administration for the future establishment of a Palestinian state and called for Israel to be in control of the region from the river to the sea.
I clarified that in any arrangement in the foreseeable future, with an accord or without an accord, the State of Israel must have security control over the entire territory west of the Jordan River. This is a necessary condition. It clashes with the principle of sovereignty. What can you do? I tell this truth to our American friends, and I also stopped the attempt to impose a reality on us that would harm Israel's security. A prime minister in Israel should be able to say no even to our best friends, say no when necessary, and say yes when possible.
This comes as Netanyahu faces growing domestic pressure to bring home the remaining 130 hostages held in Gaza. Earlier today, the Israeli Knesset session was suspended after hostages' families disrupted a committee meeting demanding lawmakers do more to free their loved ones. Protesters also blocked entrances to the Knesset. For more, we're joined in Cairo, Egypt, by Mosab Abu Toha, Palestinian poet and author who was detained by Israeli authorities as he and his family fled Gaza. He wrote about his experience in a New Yorker article headlined "A Palestinian Poet's Perilous Journey Out of Gaza." He's a columnist, a teacher, a founder of the Edward Said Library in Gaza, also the author of the award-winning book titled "Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear: Poems from Gaza." Mosab, welcome back to Democracy Now! We talked to you just after you made it out of Gaza, following some of your family members. You had been detained. Can you describe that journey and the family members that are still left in Gaza, particularly your brother's wife, who is about to give birth?
For having me, and thanks to Democracy Now! For their continued coverage of the massacres that are taking place in Gaza. I was on the show a few weeks ago with you, and I described the horrific experience that I went through. Just yesterday, I watched a video of merciless Israeli soldiers stripping naked fellow Palestinian civilians, and they were beating them in the face, beating them in the stomachs. They are outside in the open, in the cold weather. And I'm really surprised because when some media outlets communicated with the Israeli army about my case, they said, we deny everything he says. It's true, we took him, we interrogated him, but we did not attack him. But we can see on videos now that are coming out on social media by Israeli soldiers, the merciless treatment of Palestinians. So everything this army is doing is inhumane, is against whatever a child can think of doing. Even a child cannot do anything like that to a cat or to a mouse. Yesterday, my wife told me that my son, every time he is going to sleep, he starts to weep and sob and cry out loud sometimes. And he asks about his friends in Gaza. Are they eating well? Do they have water? And what about his parents, his grandparents, about his cousins? So what is going on right now in Gaza is really unprecedented. I can't think of another case in history where everything is taking place live. And the world leaders are supporting Israel with whatever they can. I was released, thankfully, after a lot of friends and media outlets wrote about my case. But there are still hundreds and hundreds of innocent people who are still under Israeli custody, who are being stripped naked, who are being beaten in the face and thrown outside in the cold. My parents and my siblings are still back in Gaza. My parents and three of my siblings and their children are in North Gaza, a place where there are only 6 ambulances for about more than 500,000 Palestinians there. They are running out of food, running out of water. Yesterday, my brother sent me a voice message from his phone, about to cry. There is no bread for the children. There is no medicine for the cold and the flu. Not to mention that there is no medicine for people with chronic diseases. And we have been telling the whole world about this on social media, on TV, and no one is listening. I mean, Israel is accusing Egypt of closing the border with Gaza. But this is a big lie, because from day one, Israel bombed the Rafah border crossing. And they are bombing the aid trucks. And they are not allowing the UNRWA Commission General from going to North Gaza. So this is a very highly official person. And he is not allowed to go to Gaza because they are saying, oh, Hamas is stealing the aid from the people. But okay, let international staff go into the north of Gaza and see what's happening there. Why are you blocking the way between the northern part and the southern part? And they still. So from day one, Israel asked people from the north of Gaza to go south. And now they are continuing to bomb the southern parts of the Gaza Strip. So nowhere is safe, whether it's North Gaza or South Gaza. And there was, yesterday I posted something on social media, and someone with, I don't know what kind of people they are, and he said, why is your brother still in North Gaza? I mean, do you mean that if he had left North Gaza, he would live in peace in South Gaza? My friends and my neighbors and my wife's family are in North Gaza, and they are starving, and many of them were killed. So where do we go?
Can you talk about the telecommunications blackout that went on for something like 8 days, and what that means for someone like your sister-in-law when it comes to giving birth?
Well, Israel was really cruel enough not only to cut off water and food from the people in Gaza, but they also cut electricity, they cut off internet connection, they cut off mobile services and landline services also. So this is not, I mean, this is not about me calling my brother, hi, how are you still alive? No, it's even when someone is being bombed, and many people are under the rubble, by the way, until now. They are under the rubble, and they send sometimes messages from their phone services. I mean, the only way people can communicate with the outside world is using an eSIM card that they could connect to networks outside of Gaza. So some people would send, oh, they bombed my neighbor's house and they are under the rubble. Can someone please call the Red Cross? Can someone call the ambulances? So it's not only about disconnecting us from each other, but also when someone is wounded, is thrown in the street, and they try to reach out to an ambulance, there is no way they can do that. So I don't know what kind of cruelty that lead someone to cut water, food, to cut the connection, and also to cut their lives. So they are ending the lives of everyone in Gaza, especially children.
Mosab Abu Toha,
my sister, my brother's wife is pregnant. Yeah.
And when is she expected to give birth? She's in the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza?
Yes, she is in the Jabalia refugee camp. She was staying at a school, at an UNRWA school, with her husband and her 3 other children. But because the schools are very crowded and there is no water, no toilets to use, so they sometimes go back and forth between their family house and the UNRWA school in the Jabalia refugee camp. And by the way, our house was bombed on October 28th. And we were lucky because we were not there. So no one of us was harmed, but still they are under the threat of being killed any moment. I mean, not only by the Israeli airstrikes, but also as a mother, my brother's wife is now pregnant. There is no guarantee that she is going to give birth just like other mothers give birth to their children. There is no cleanliness. There are no clothes for the newborn. There is no formula milk if needed. There is no medicine for the mother if she needs any treatment. So many people are dying not because of the Israeli airstrikes, not because of the bombs, but also because there is any sign of good life there.
I wanted to ask you, Mosab Abu Toha, about the significance of massive protests around the world, and in the United States, particularly led by the Jewish community, what that means to you, and also South Africa bringing this case against Israel, charging it with genocide to the International Court of Justice.
I was invited to read during a rabbi event for ceasefire, and we have been seeing the South African attempts to prove Israel's genocidal attempts to kill as many Gazans as possible. So we have African people who lived under the apartheid system, and we have Jews who were killed during the Holocaust in Europe. So they are now uniting together to stop these massacres. So this tells us as Gazans that we share the same suffering with other people. But unfortunately, this suffering is brought to us by other people now in Israel, Zionists, who are bringing this cycle of violence into us. And not for a year or two. It's been happening even before the Nakba in 1948. So this tells us that suffering is colorless, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a white or a Muslim or an Arab or a male or a female. It's enough for you to be a human, to sympathize with other people and to call for a ceasefire and to stand for your fellow human beings. And I hope that we can hear similar pleas and we can see other attempts, not by the free people of the world, but also if there is any free leader in the world who can step in and say out loud to stop the massacres, the non-stop massacres of the Palestinian people, and to call for a just solution to the Palestinian case.
Mosab, we spoke to you right before Rafat al-Arir was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza, the renowned Palestinian poet. I know he was a close friend of yours. I was wondering if you could share your remembrance of him, talk about his significance and how he died.
Well, first of all, Rifat's death is not a unique death. There are many other intelligent and wonderful and lovely people who were killed the same way. And by the way, many people don't know this, but Rifat's body is still under the rubble of the house that was bombed. So I want everyone to imagine that your brother, that your father, that your neighbor was not only killed, but his body is still under the rubble, and the body is starting to decay. I don't know what remains of Rifat's body. This really breaks my heart. I would like to remember Rifat as someone who was always ready to listen to our literary works. He liked to read some of Shakespeare's sonnets, of John Donne's poems. He was a huge fan of John Donne. I would like to remember Rifat as someone who loved to go to strawberry farms and pick strawberries with me and to play pun games. Rifat is someone who didn't want to die, and in his poem, If I Must Die, he didn't say if I die, if I must die. If my death was a necessity, let it be a hope, let it be a tale, let it bring hope. And it's really very, very, very sympathetic and very, very beautiful to see that many people around the world are reading his poem and flying his kite. And I'm sure that Rifat is outside now, seeing. I mean, although his body is still under the rubble, but his spirit, his soul is watching everything. He's watching the kites that are flying in the sky of the free world. And I believe that his only hope right now is that these kites will fly over Gaza to protect the children and mothers and fathers and everyone in Gaza from the Israeli airstrikes.
I want to end by asking about what you are calling for. The Wall Street Journal's reporting the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt are pushing Israel and Hamas to take part in what the paper describes as a phased diplomatic process involving the release of hostages and the eventual withdrawal of Israeli forces. But following the report, Netanyahu said he rejects the proposal because it calls for the war to end. Your response, Mosab?
Okay, so I don't think that any ceasefire that is going to be signed between Hamas and Israel is going to end the Palestinian suffering. So if this suffering does not end, I don't think that there will be peace. What should be called for is a just solution to the Palestinian case. It's not only about the hostages, it's not about even the children who are being killed now. Because if there is no peace, if there is not realistic peace is not being reached, I think that we will unfortunately witness more and more of the killings of innocent people everywhere. What I call for is a ceasefire because we want to save as many children and many family members as possible. What I'm calling for, if they can impose a ceasefire right now, at least get some food and some water and some sanitary pads to the mothers and everyone in North Gaza at least. I don't know what makes this world powerless in front of Israel.
Mosab Abu Toha, I want to thank you for being with us, Palestinian poet and author, detained by Israeli authorities as he and his family fled Gaza, a columnist, a teacher, founder of the Edward Said Library in Gaza, author of the award-winning book, Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, Poems from Gaza. We'll also link to his pieces in the New Yorker magazine.